Welcome back to Passionate About Music Education, a channel dedicated to you, the music educator. I'm Rachel Hardman, and today in this video we're going to talk about how we can help our music students become independent learners and creative thinkers. Have you ever found yourself sat in a staff room listening to the conversation while you're eating your sandwich and hearing teachers moan about their classes and how their students are not independent thinkers or creative learners? That the students don't know how to go and research or put together projects or use the computer properly, or whatever it is that teacher talks about that they're finding their students can't do. And in truth, we often forget that even in this very digital age where our students have access to so much knowledge and wealth of information, that actually they are still just children, and we still need to help them learn how to be independent learners and creative thinkers. And I think the arts is one of the strongest subject areas for helping our students learn these skills. Whether that is in their instrumental lessons, or whether that's in a classroom, or whether in our band program. We want our students to be reflective, to think for themselves, to try new things out, to ask questions, to be curious, to be creative, to really kind of push the boundaries of what they currently can do and what they hope to be able to do, so that they bridge that gap. And of course, it's all linked in with being courageous and being brave. I think regardless of the age of your student and regardless of the situation that you are teaching music in, it's really important for us to kind of try to step back from the old method of just teach, and to give students an opportunity to think for themselves and learn for themselves, to be curious, to ask questions, to encourage that conversation, and also for us to be honest, and if there's something we don't know, to be honest about it, to model looking up information and researching. Music is such a vast topic, it covers so many genres. We couldn't possibly know everything there is to know about every composer and genre of music. There's nothing wrong with us having to research this information, learn it. So if we do this as adults, as educators, then that's okay to model that in front of our students, because we want them to be lifelong learners. We want them to understand that education is not something you only do in school. It's something that you'll do for the rest of your life. When thinking about this topic and ways that we can help as music educators, I was thinking about the questions that we ask within the education setting, whether that's individual lesson or classroom. Here are a couple of ways that you can help your students think more creatively and become more independent thinkers in the classroom. I think the why question is such a powerful question, particularly if you're in a classroom setting with, middle schoolers or high schoolers who don't really want to answer too much, who just want to sort of sit back and be taught, just want to be given the information. They don't want to sort of stand out in front of their peers. It's to really ask that question, well, why? Especially if they're kind of only giving you one word answers to any question. So you may ask a question. Let's take this one. Why was Beethoven so important to music history? And the student might go, well, because he wrote lots of music. Okay. And by leaving a pause, students have time to add to it, to develop that conversation. But students are used to giving one-word answers. And a lot of the questions, exams that are doing are multiple choice. They don't really have to think beyond that one or two sentences. But when you ask, and another student might be involved and say, wow, because he lived through this period of music, because he helped develop music from the classical period to the romantic period, because he was a deaf musician and he had to find ways of composing without being able to hear the music. Whatever answer they start to go into, then you can add that, well, why is that significant? Why would it be important for us to know Beethoven and to recognise the quality of music he made as a deaf musician? And what would it have been like to live in the 1700s? What were the challenges he had? Then you are getting them to be much more creative in their thinking and to really pull out all of those answers and that topical information. Students have it, it's already in them, but we kind of have conditioned them to listen and learn and not really contribute much and not to really answer and to think. So I really love the why question, and then follow it with the and. It allows students time to add more and to really think about developing their answers. Of course, this works perfectly for instrumental lessons, so why do you think this music is at this tempo? Why do you think this songwriter wrote these lyrics? And the students will give you, the basic answer, because it's a sad piece. And, well, why was the composer trying to be sad? And what else was the piece about? It really gets them to think about the music that they're performing or listening to or playing or composing, so that they also can then take those skills and apply it to themselves. Often students sing songs and they don't really think about the lyrics. They're not really thinking about the story behind it. What was the composer trying to capture in that moment? And I think it's really our job sometimes to step back from just the teaching, the focus on the pitch and the rhythm and, get into a polished performance, but actually for the students to really think about why. Why are they singing this song? Why is this song so powerful? What is it about this song they like? What words are important? And what was the message behind it? Why did they choose these lyrics? When you start asking your students, and you can do this with your beginner students up to your advanced. I do this in my own lessons when I'm teaching singers. I'm asking them, well, what's the song about? And why did they write this? And what word do you think's important? And why do you think this section's challenging as a singer? Or why do you think the composer wrote it at this tempo or in this key? Another area for you to consider is don't rely on hands up in the classroom. There is always a student in the classroom who's super keen, who can answer every question, and that is fantastic. And they're probably that super keen student who answers questions in every subject, who are confident enough to communicate their answers and have that discussion with the teacher. What happens is then other students are very much happy to sit back and allow that student to do all the class work. Doesn't mean that they don't have good ideas, or actually they might not have the answers. They might genuinely don't know. And this is where when you're asking students individually within the class, rather than just relying on hands up, then you will find out that some students don't understand, which is great, because if they're not understanding, there's more than one or two that's probably not understanding. So it's a great chance for you to explain. It's okay that you don't understand. It's okay that you need more clarification on this because I've either not explained it properly or haven't gone in and given you enough good examples or shown you or demonstrated so that you have that understanding. So I really like not always relying on hands up. Sometimes if they're sort of sat in a U shape or however you lay your room out, I may go around the room and asking questions. I might go alphabetically. I'll just keep it fresh and different so I'm not again relying on the same students. I don't always do that. Sometimes I'll mix with the hands up and then I'll go, hey, what do you think? And again, if they only give you that one word sort of, I don't really answer the question, it's a bit embarrassing, kind of peer pressure kind of response you get generally from teenagers, then again, don't be afraid to give the and the why and give them chance to answer the questions. Most of the time, teachers only give the student maybe 2, 3, 4 seconds to answer a question before they pick on somebody else, or somebody else is super keen, I know the answer, I know the answer, I know the answer. But we do need to give students that moment to think, and also for them to know that you are going to wait for that answer, so that there's an expectation of sharing knowledge. If you are doing lots of composing and practical work, I really love that how would you improve the work? Feedback. So whenever we demonstrate work, we always do it in class, the students perform to each other, whether that's a performance piece or a composition, and then I generally hand it over to the class and go, okay, what did you like about the work? What did the students do really well? What did you like about the music? How did they meet the brief or the assignment? And then I'd like you to give one piece of feedback or advice on, if I gave them another 10 minutes to practice or another hour, what one thing do you think that they should work on next? We always have parameters within that kind of question, because what we don't want it to be is people individually picking on each other. So it's always set up that students know that feedback is not an opportunity to be unkind to somebody, it's actually to give that general information on how to improve. What is it musically they didn't meet about the brief, or what was it musically they did that you'd like more of, or how are the parts balanced, particularly if you're doing classroom composition and you've got one kid on a keyboard and a xylophone and some tuned or untuned percussion. Depends on what you've got. Have they given all their ideas too quickly? Could they stagger them? Could they do something different? The more that they get used to giving that feedback in a productive and positive way, it says positive feedback, it also means that while we're talking about it, you're saying to the students, Every idea that you give everybody is an idea that you could use yourself. So if you hear something brilliant, give feedback on that and then think about how you can use that creatively in your own work. That's no different than what we see when we do our own learning. Is we go and research, we want to know how to be a better teacher, so we go on to videos like this one, and if we don't like this one, we'll go on to another video and find another coach until we find somebody who resonates with our ideas. So we're always learning and looking for, for good content and good ideas. So that is the same kind of principle that we want to encourage our students to do. It always makes me smile when students say, "Hey miss, they're copying our idea, we were doing that and they're copying it." And I'm going, well, that's a compliment. And the students go, well, yeah, it's copying, it's cheating. I went, well, in this case, it's not. It's they really liked your idea and concept and wanted to use it themselves. There's nothing wrong with that because they're going to do it in a unique way to their music and their ideas. This is a positive thing. And students go, oh, okay, that's actually quite good that they liked our idea, whether that was in a drama, performance, or whether that was in your music composition or performance. One of my favourite tools to use in individual music lessons where I'm teaching one-to-one, regardless of whether they're a younger student in elementary, whether they're a senior, whether they're a beginner or advanced, is to ask them, what would you do next if you were the teacher? What would you tell or recommend you do next if you were the teacher? So they've played through an extract, they've performed it, and I'm like, rather than me constantly telling them what to fix, I want them to be able to think for themselves. I want them to be able to identify what went well, what they need to work on next. Because if they don't know that, then they won't know how to go and practice independently. So I always ask that question, even from like the beginners, the first couple of lessons. Hey, you played that really great. Okay, if you were the teacher, if you were me, what would you tell you to do next? What would you advise? They already know. They'll say, oh, I played this bar wrong, or I didn't breathe, or I played the rhythm incorrectly, or maybe I played it too slowly, and I didn't use the correct articulation. I mispitched that word. Sometimes they're overcritical and you can go, actually, you did this, this and this right. And yes, I agree with that area. Okay, now that you've identified that the rhythm wasn't correct, let's play it through again. And this time, focus just on making sure that the rhythm is correct. This way, it helps encourage students to focus on the problem to fix it, which they generally do on the second time through because they're now thinking about playing the correct rhythm. Also helps them understand how to break down learning music and how they can use that in their own independent practice. If we don't encourage them to think for themselves, we don't ask those open-ended questions, then they genuinely don't know how to go and practice. So then when they come back to our lessons, we're frustrated they're frustrated more than us because they haven't made the right progress, but they don't know how to do it. We presume that our students, regardless of how they're accessing music and education, are able to think for themselves because there's so much technology, but in reality, most of the time, they're not really sure how to access it or use it. So our job is to help navigate how to use all of these skills, how to think for themselves, how to be creative, so that they can go away and experiment with it in their own time. Our job is to help them be creative and to be independent thinkers. If not, their whole idea and concept of very narrow-minded is, oh, if I play the violin, I can only play in an orchestra to make a living. There's no career in music making. And we know that that's not true. But if we don't open that world out to them and show them examples, and definitely now with technology and social media, there's so many different ways of sharing music and being a performing artist, that it's our role to get them to think independently and to be creative and to go and research. But they can't do that on their own. They need us to help them guide. I really do hope this video has given you a couple of strategies of ways that you can help your students become independent learners and creative thinkers, how they can be encouraged to think for themselves, and that in truth, many of their ideas are great and they should be more confident in sharing them and exploring them. If you love this video, then of course don't forget to like the video and subscribe. If there's content or topic you would like us to go into, then leave that in the comments. We will make those videos for you. And if you found this video helpful in any way, then please check out these videos here on the screen next.